Well, Klein ISD won District of the Year this year, but if you look at the educational levels, the students that met grade level were 36% in writing, 42% in math, and 50% in reading. My name is Kristin Cobb. I'm running for Klein ISD position 5. So when I talk about those statistics, I think it's clear that we need to get back to basics. We need to focus on reading, writing, math, accurate account of history. These are the things that we should be focusing on. Everything else should be pushed aside so that we can prepare our children for the future. So the current board, they unanimously signed on to an equity resolution in July of 2020 when our kids were going back to school for the first time with mask mandates and social distancing protocols. And they thought that race was the most important thing to our kids at that time, when I disagree. At that time, race was really one of the most divisive issues that we could be making a resolution about. And I just wish they would have done something that had to do with the safety of our kids or the education of our kids instead. When you look at some of the training that Klein ISD has been giving to their teachers, the teaching and learning and leading staff, they had a training this year in which they were given 7 different books as a recommendation to read for the instruction of our kids. Those books included White Fragility, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Alone at the Table, How to Have Courageous Conversations About Race, and all 7 of those books had to do with race. And that focus on race is taking us away from educating our kids. I mean, we really need to focus on that.
My dad was forced to use the colored drinking fountains on the ships when he served in the Navy. He fought so that we wouldn't be divided like that again. Let's preserve the legacy of all those who fought against racial divides and stop dividing our nation.
My name is Kristin Cobb. I'm running for Klein ISD School Board, position number 5. Early voting starts October 18th and Election Day is November 2nd. Come out and vote for me. And if you would like to learn more about what's going on in your district, just visit my website, www.KristinCobb4Klein.com. KristinCobb4Klein.com.
Don't indoctrinate us.
Educate us.
Kristin Cobb. I'm running for Klein ISD School Board, position number 5, and I'm running to speak truth into the lies. So in Klein ISD, no place for hate, that designation, it does exist there. However, they're denying it's there. Since we've been running, the 4 of us, since this election's been going on, we've been sharing as moms, and in our mom groups, we've been sharing a lot of information. And when we do, especially when it's regarding CRT and some of these programs, they get deleted off the internet. So a friend of ours, Priscilla, did a PIR request and asked for all the information regarding the No Place for Hate designation in Klein ISD. And when that happened, they got a response saying that there is no Place for Hate program in Klein ISD. Then that was also deleted off the website. However, the moms that come and speak with us in our meet and greets and things, they're telling us that there's still No Place for Hate posters on the wall. So this is why I say I'm speaking truth into the lies, because that's what we're seeing. A lot of the things that we're being told are just not true. We do absolutely have this singular focus on race, and like we said, the term CRT is probably not going to be used as openly, especially now that we're bringing it out and shining light on that particular issue. So they're putting it in all these other kind of ways. So for instance, on this right hand side over here where you see the books, all the smaller books, if you can't read them, I'll read some of the titles, but that is taken from a training for Klein ISD leadership and teaching staff. So that would be like the administration, not necessarily all of the teachers, but this is how they're teaching this ideology. You can see that they're recommending reading like White Fragility. Also, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? Race Talk and the Conspiracy of Silence. And down there is some extra book titles, case studies for diversity and social justice education. So as you can see, all of these things are absolutely involved in Klein, and so that's why this race is so important. All American Boys is a book title that when we were at one of the school board's meetings, a mother brought that book to our attention, and she's married to a police officer, and this is an assignment that her son was given. They were to read this book, which is about systemic racism within the police department. So of course she said my son's not going to be reading anything like that. Moreover, that book's theme had a destruction of the family type of a theme within it, where the police officer that ends up beating this minority student who was the best friend of his own son. That son, who was whose father was that police officer, he makes the decision to cut all ties with himself and his father. So that's the destruction of the family that we're seeing. I also want to highlight something that Radu said. I think that all of us have seen the letter that the National Association of School Boards brought out, where they wanted to designate parents as terrorists. And like Radu was saying, we know that when you disagree with some of the things that are going on, that's how they're going to label us. I know they also retracted that letter, but it's a little bit too late now. I think we know exactly where they're going, so we don't believe it. And thank you for telling us exactly how you felt about parents coming and speaking at meetings, because I don't know about you, but when I see all of these moms being escorted off of the premises by police officers in these viral videos, I've not seen one of a school board member having that same problem. So here's the No Place for Hate that I was discussing a moment ago. So if you look at what it says there, it says that the ADL's No Place for Hate program is an initiative which provides educators and students with the resources to ensure that anti-bias and diversity education are an integral part of learning. So we know that that's what they're trying to do with the schools, especially with the No Place for Hate. This one on the right here, on this side, is a equity resolution that they passed in July of 2020. The reason they passed this was because this was the first time we were going back to schools, and we were going back to schools with our kids having social distancing protocols they've never had before, and mask mandates. So the most important thing, and if you can ask me for the link on this if you want to read it a little bit more, but every single paragraph is about race, and it's about apologizing for even perpetrating this racist ideology without even knowing that you're doing it. And so the board unanimously passed this. They did a video and they all read a portion of it, and they thought that this was the most important thing affecting our students going back into the school year, not the fact that we had just lost a year worth of education. Here is some gender issues. When I first started running, I knew there were CRT issues. I was not aware of some of this gender stuff that was going on, and so for our new school year this year, some of those get to know your student questionnaires were given to the students, and you can see that red circle right there. The teacher wanted to know which pronoun they were using. And in a 6th grade class, this Gracefully Grayson book was assigned to a student. And this book says that Grayson has been holding on to a secret for what seems like forever. He is a girl on the inside, stuck in the wrong gender's body. Mm-hmm. So this is not something that I feel would be appropriate to be giving to minor children. And this is happening in Klein. And of course they're telling us that this stuff is not happening, but we know it is. So Klein has some other fiscal responsibility issues. I think that we're spending a lot of money in areas that we could probably reduce. One of the other things we need to do is we need to have a committee that is formed of community members like yourself to go through some of these transactions. The check registers at Klein ISD are around like 50,000 different charges. And so what we need to have these members doing is taking a huge chunk of that, maybe a couple thousand a piece, and actually Googling the names of the organizations that we're spending our money on, because some of these things that we're spending money on and some of these programs that we're sending our teachers to are really just, like we said, Trojan horses to have them bring this equity, diversity, inclusive training back to our students in Klein ISD. So we need to be careful about where we're spending our money and start pointing out that these are the things that we don't want our tax-paying dollars and our dollars being spent on our kids. And so for some of the money issues too, I looked through these check registers and found hotels and airfare. In the month of April, they spent about $87,614. And if you remember what happened in April, I do. My business was shut down. And I wasn't going anywhere. So they also spent $31,000 on restaurants that same month. The budget is about $526 million. We're doing pretty good because we're only $1.1 billion in debt, but I think if you live in Klein, we all know that they're planning another bond. And $100 million of our budget goes towards that debt, so I don't think we need to be adding to it just yet. I think we can look at, maybe lowering some of what we're already spending and redirecting it towards educating our students. And here's the most important thing that we need to do as far as educating our kids. So one of the things that you will not hear discussed at the school board meetings or by the superintendent is exactly how well our kids are performing in the district. We just won National District of the Year. Obviously, it's not from our academics. We've got 50% of our kids are meeting grade level right now in Klein in reading. 42% are meeting grade level in math and 36% in writing. So we need to refocus our resources right now, not on teaching all of these gender ideologies, all of these, racial hyper focus on race that we see, we need to really start focusing on educating our kids, because if we don't, I mean, this is how our kids are going to be graduating, totally unprepared for success, but fully prepared to be dependent upon the state.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the reasons that I'm running is I'm a business owner in the district. I write policy. I have a master's degree from Liberty University School of Law, and so policy is a real passion of mine, and I know that we can take some of this stuff that we're waiting on to get passed at the legislative level, and we can implement some policy to restrict some of the ideological teaching that we're seeing. And of course, we need to really spend money on and giving our teachers these tools to support our students fully, because this is something our teachers have never dealt with either. Our teachers, for the first time in their lives, have classrooms filled with students that are having these kind of struggles from this lack of education last year in the early 2020. And they need to be able to have the tools they need to catch somebody up after they've lost an entire year's worth of learning. And one of the great things that we have going on in Klein is the fact that 4 of the 7 positions are up. And in our election, only about 3,400 people turned out and voted. So like Hunter was saying, if everyone in this church turned out, you could absolutely make a change in this district. So I want to ask you to pay attention to these elections. I want to make sure that we're focusing on the parent needs, and make sure that you're joining these Facebook groups, that you're watching what your kids are being taught, and that you're sharing them amongst yourselves, because if we're not sharing this stuff with each other, we're not going to know that it's going on. So if you've been to any of the school board meetings during the election cycle, you've noticed that it's very hard to get to these. They're changing the locations, changing the times. The last one that we had, the location was moved. The time before that, they changed the time from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And that's significant because the beginning of the meeting is when the teachers have that 2 minutes to speak. So the parents have 2 minutes to speak, and so if you're coming from work, you're going to miss that opportunity. And several folks' names were called and they were not able to speak, so they were stuck in traffic trying to get there. So in Klein ISD, I think that we can all see that there definitely is it's time for change right now, and we need to make sure that we're voting in people that are willing to stand up and speak the truth into the lies that we're seeing.
First of all, I want to thank you for stepping in. I worked in the school system for 10 years, okay, and inclusion paraprofessional, and I can tell you firsthand, I pulled my children out when I found out how the poop runs downhill. I have a question. Is the union still involved in the systems, and school teachers, are they still required to, does that keep them safe? I mean, is those unions still a thread in their jobs, let's put it that way?
In Klein or in any
In all the school districts. I worked in Cy-Fair.
Okay, well, I guess I can kind of answer that one. So the unions in Texas, you're not required to be a part of them, but you do still have a union rep at each one of these districts. And so is there pressure for the teachers to be part of the union? Probably so, because you'll see that the superintendent, or the people that are in charge will punish some of the teachers who are conservative or who are strong Christians by moving them from different areas. For like, if I wanted to teach English, they could be moving into an area that I don't want to teach, or punish them some other kind of a way. So the pressure to do it is there, but so the leadership needs to change in that way, so that way that pressure can be removed. But again, I think it's always going to be there, so it's up to the teachers to also communicate with one another, because if you're not, the same thing that's going to happen with us as parents is going to happen, and that's our kids are going to be individually given assignments that are more like indoctrination type assignments than but it takes everyone to get involved with each other so that we know what's going on, but otherwise it will continue.
Well, it's another level of bureaucracy where
Yes.
you get good teachers are kicked to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw one of the best teachers I've ever worked for in my life. I worked with special ed children and the troubled kids, and I did inclusion, where I helped them transition into regular school, into classrooms, and she was outstanding. We had 100% success rate, and she got kicked to the curb.
Well, it sounds like we need her help in these districts. I would love to have some of that advocacy.
That's just one of many stories I could share, but I'm gonna just say that might be a thread that we made, because Texas is a right to work state. I'm just saying that And then the unions have a lot to do with it, I'm gonna just have to say, I feel that.
Well, the unions and also the pressure amongst leadership within the schools also,
Well,
so.
it's a comfort. We had a principal call one of the students an odd duck. You know what he did? He got a promotion. He got promoted up into the district, into a position he had no qualification for whatsoever.
What we see that, we also see the teachers that end up getting fired, transferred just out of that district and into another district as
Yes.
well.
I'm telling you.
So their poor records do not follow them. I think that might be an issue that we could raise on a school board level, so.
Well, his wife was on the school board, that might have had a little.
Maybe so. Well, yeah, and you know, another thing I think Yvonne wanted me to share with you guys that I forgot to mention up there is, I previously, probably back in 2016, I was one of those people, I was a strong, faithful Christian, and I would look at a background of someone being a pastor as just an immediate pass as to being someone that I would vote for. So we do have a pastor that's an incumbent we're running against in Klein, but there is a pastor in Cy-Fair who says some of the most vile things that I've ever seen come out of an individual's mouth, and he is a pastor as well.
I have a
So,
question. I wasn't gonna say nothing, but I guess I should. My question is, with the system we have now, what can we do with these bad people we got in? What should we do? Should we go to the school board and protest? What can we do with what we have now? Because we know we said spring is too late. I'm in the spring district. All of my kids are grown, so I don't have any there, but what can we do now with what's going on to help to fight what's going on until the next time show up?
so again, we need to get, I don't know, Facebook groups or some way of communication, because you have to have a team. You have to bring people together. You have to be sharing with each other the assignments and the negativity or the poor choices that are being, you know, made, because if we're not sharing them together, no one knows what's going on. And that's why it's important. So if that spring group, I would suggest that Natalie began. I suggest everyone getting on there. If there's already 3,000 people there, we're starting one in Klein, and that's where the parents are sharing, hey, here's a picture of a book, and it's written by a Marxist. If you look at the reviews, it's all about hating America and hating our history, and it's revisionist history. Hey, here's an assignment on gender. That's how I found that the pronoun questionnaires, through these parents sharing amongst each other what's going on, so we can hold them accountable. And you share it amongst yourselves, and you get into these school board meetings and you do your 2-minute discussion, and then you take clips of those videos and you share it online so that people are knowing what's going on. But you have to shed light on it, because once we see and identify the issue, only then can you start handling those issues. And as far as, you know, I don't want to just say like, let's fire everyone. Here's why I feel super strong about policy, because if you have policies in place that are very specific on what kind of ideological issues you cannot be teaching in the classroom, then you can reprimand the teacher. You can redirect them into what they're teaching, and that would not include what they had that reprimand for. And maybe you could have a 3 strikes and you're out system, so you can remove them, but give them the opportunity, because the reason this is happening even with our pastors is because this stuff is evil and it's deceptive, and people are being deceived. We see people leaving their churches because woke ideology has crept into the churches. So because it's so evil and because it's so deceptive, that is why we see people supporting it, that you know for a fact that if they knew the truth behind it, they would never support anything like that.